Think about the last time you walked into a truly clean home. Not just tidy, not just presentable, spotless. A kind of clean where every surface was clear, every cushion was straight, and the air itself felt different. Lighter, calmer. Now think about your grandmother's house. If she was a British woman who kept her home in the 1950s or 1960s, chances are that's exactly what you found when you walked through her door. No piles of post on the hallway table, no dishes waiting in the sink, no junk drawer stuffed with things that might come in useful someday, just order. Quiet, effortless, unshakable order. And here's what nobody talks about. She did it without a single storage bin from a catalog, without a decluttering app, without a weekend warrior cleaning session that left her exhausted and resentful. She did it in a home that was genuinely difficult to keep clean, because before the Clean Air Act of 1956 changed everything, coal fires heated nearly every British household. Soot crept under doors. Dust settled on every surface within hours. Many streets were still unpaved, meaning mud and grime walked in on every pair of shoes. The Great Smog of London in December of 1952, which killed an estimated 4,000 people in 5 days, with some researchers putting the true figure closer to 12,000, was the extreme end of a daily reality that British women fought inside their homes, room by room, every single morning. That is the world in which these habits were forged. Not comfort, not aesthetic preference. Survival with dignity. And yet today, with our modern vacuum cleaners, our antibacterial sprays, our drawer organizers and our matching linen sets, our homes are more chaotic than theirs ever were. We have every tool they never had. We have none of the results they took for granted. So what did they know that we've forgotten? Today we're counting down 20 habits that kept British homes immaculate. Habits that cost nothing, required no special equipment, and were simply woven into the fabric of daily life until they became as automatic as breathing. Some of these will feel familiar. Others will feel like a quiet accusation. And at least one of them will make you look around your own home and see it with completely different eyes. Stay with us. Because by the time we reach number 1, you'll understand that your grandmother wasn't just clean. She was wise in a way that no organization guru has ever managed to package and sell. Because wisdom like this was never meant to be sold. It was meant to be passed down. Let's begin. Number 20. The doorstep ritual. Before anyone crossed the threshold, the dirt stayed outside. That was the rule. And it wasn't posted on a sign or announced at the door. It was simply understood by every member of the household, from the time they were old enough to walk in on their own. Your grandmother kept a boot scraper cemented into the front step, cast iron usually, heavy, fixed, immovable, and every person who came through that door used it without being asked, because not using it was unthinkable. Mud, gravel, coal dust, street grime, all of it belonged outside, and outside is exactly where it stayed. In working-class British streets before tarmac became standard, unpaved paths meant that shoes carried the road itself into the house with every step. Add to that the soot from coal fires that coated pavements and doorsteps from October through to April, and you begin to understand that this habit wasn't fussiness. It was a practical defense against a genuinely filthy outside world. A stiff brush hung by the back door for work boots. Wellington boots lived in the coal shed, never the kitchen. Inside, a neat row of slippers waited, because the carpet, often the most expensive single item in the house after the furniture itself, needed to last. And it did last, for decades, because the grime never reached it in the first place. We've replaced all of this with a thin rubber mat and an unspoken prayer. We track in whatever the pavement offers, wonder why the floors look grey by November, and reach for the Hoover 3 times a week instead of using a boot scraper once. Number 19. The bed made before breakfast. Every single morning, without negotiation. Without the compromise of I'll do it later. Because later, in your grandmother's household, was not a recognized time of day for a task that belonged to the morning. The sheets were smoothed tight enough to bounce a coin. The top fold came down with precision. The pillows were plumped and placed square against the headboard. The whole process took perhaps 4 minutes. And those 4 minutes transformed the entire bedroom from a place of rest into a place of order before the kettle had even boiled. Good housekeeping guides from the 1950s listed bedmaking as the first task of the day, not because someone had run a study, but because generations of British women had observed the same truth independently. A made bed sets the tone for everything that follows. The room looks cared for. The floor looks worse by comparison if clothes are left on it, so the clothes get picked up too. The tidiness spreads, almost without effort, simply because the bed made the standard clear. Dr. Liz Yardley, a lecturer in sociology at Birmingham City University, documented this generation's approach with a phrase that cuts straight to the heart of it. Cleanliness was a mark of respectability. Sitting down during the day was only acceptable in the evening. That is not a cleaning tip. That is an entire philosophy of how a home should feel, and who is responsible for making it feel that way. Number 18. The clean-as-you-go kitchen. Your grandmother never faced a sink full of dishes after dinner. Not because she had help. Not because she cooked simpler food, but because the washing up happened as the cooking happened. Quietly, efficiently, without drama. Peel the potatoes. Rinse the peeler. Dry it. Put it back. Drain the vegetables. Wash the colander while the gravy simmers. By the time the meal reached the table, the kitchen was nearly spotless. Only the dinner plates remained. This wasn't obsessive. It was mathematical. British kitchens of the 1950s were a fraction of the size of modern ones. There was no dishwasher. Counter space was limited. Letting mess accumulate didn't just look bad, it meant losing your workspace entirely. Ministry of Food films from the 1940s had demonstrated this method as essential wartime efficiency, a habit that carried straight through into peacetime because it worked. It died when dishwashers arrived. We pile dishes in the sink, promising to load them later, and then wonder why cooking feels like such an effort. Your grandmother spent less time cleaning because she never allowed the mess to build into something that needed conquering. Number 17. The weekly cleaning schedule. Monday was wash day. Tuesday was ironing. Wednesday the bedrooms received a thorough going over. Thursday was bathrooms. Friday meant floors and surfaces. Saturday the front step was scrubbed. Sunday the house rested. And so did she. And here is what made it genuinely brilliant. There was no decision fatigue. No standing in the hallway on a Tuesday morning wondering where to start. Feeling overwhelmed by the scale of what needed doing. Tuesday was ironing. That was decided. The mental energy that modern people spend choosing what to tackle, and then avoiding it, simply didn't exist. The schedule became automatic. Like breathing. Like putting the kettle on when someone knocked at the door. Number 16. Everything has a place. Keys hung on the hook by the door. Letters went in the rack on the hall table. Scissors lived in the top drawer of the sideboard. Every item in your grandmother's house had an assigned home, and everyone in that house knew exactly where that home was. This principle appeared in British household guides as far back as 1842. The phrase, "a place for everything, and everything in its place," was not invented by a productivity influencer. It is nearly 2 centuries old. The result was a home where nothing was ever truly lost. No frantic morning searches. No drawers crammed with objects that had nowhere else to go. Number 15. The airing cupboard system. That warm cupboard built around the hot water tank wasn't simply where the towels lived. It was a precision storage operation, organized with the kind of quiet logic that modern flat-pack storage solutions have never managed to replicate. Sheets on the left, folded in thirds. Towels on the right, stacked by size, largest at the bottom. The warmth wasn't incidental. In British homes without central heating, and central heating didn't become standard in most British houses until the late 1970s, damp was a constant enemy. Mildew could ruin linen within weeks if it was stored cold and slightly damp after washing. The airing cupboard kept everything fresh, properly dry and ready. Then fitted sheets arrived in the 1970s, and nobody could fold them properly. The careful system collapsed almost overnight. We now stuff linen wherever it will physically fit. Number 14. Touch it once. When the post came through the letterbox, your grandmother sorted it immediately. Bills went into the bill folder. Letters to be answered went to the writing desk. Circulars went straight into the bin. She never put posts somewhere to deal with later, because that pile on the hallway table, the one that grows in modern homes until it becomes a small monument to procrastination, simply did not exist in hers. The principle extended to everything. Bring the shopping in. Put it away. Don't leave bags on the counter to unpack when you've got a minute. Take off your coat, hang it up. Don't drape it over the chair because you're only staying a moment. That moment always becomes an hour. Research from the British Cleaning Council has shown that most household objects are physically moved multiple times before they are actually put away. Your grandmother moved each item once, directly. Now, before we go further, if you're finding value in what we're uncovering here, please do subscribe to the channel. We put out content like this regularly. Real history, real habits, real stories from British life that deserve to be remembered rather than forgotten. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a comment below telling us which habit you remember from your own childhood home. And if this has brought back memories worth sharing, pass it along to a friend who might feel the same. Number 13. Closing the kitchen for the night. After the last cup of tea was washed and dried and put away, the kitchen closed, surfaces wiped, crumbs swept, tea towel hung to dry on the rail. The room was left exactly as it should be found in the morning, because whoever came downstairs first deserved to find order, not last night's chaos. Number 12. The newspaper under the doormat. Wet boots, muddy shoes, dripping umbrellas, all of it landed on newsprint that soaked up the moisture and could be replaced in under a minute. The mat above stayed dry, the floor beneath stayed clean, and the newspaper was free, already read, already paid for, performing one final service before it went out with the rubbish. In homes where a good doormat was an expense worth protecting, this habit preserved mats for years. Number 11. The mending box. In the corner of the sitting room sat a box or basket. Inside, needles, thread in various colors, buttons saved from worn-out garments. Nothing with a torn seam or a missing button was put away broken. It went into the mending box, and once a week your grandmother worked through the pile. This habit kept clothes alive for years. A loose button was secured before it fell off. A small tear was stitched before it spread. Everything that could be repaired was repaired. Not out of poverty, but out of a deeply held belief that throwing away something fixable was a kind of waste that decent people simply didn't commit. We now discard items that need 5 minutes of attention and replace them with things made to last half as long. The mending box didn't just keep wardrobes organized, it kept drawers clear, because nothing broken sat cluttering the space while waiting for a solution that never came. Number 10. The 15-minute evening tidy. Every night before bed, your grandmother walked through the ground floor with a small basket, a child's toy left on the rug, a teacup on the arm of the chair. Into the basket they went, and then each item was returned to its proper home before the lights went off. 15 minutes, maximum, often less. This wasn't cleaning, it was maintenance. The difference between a home that stays manageable and one that slides gradually into a state that requires a full Saturday to address. House Beautiful magazine recommended this practice as early as 1923, calling it the evening round. Your grandmother didn't need the article. Her mother had done the same. Modern households skip this ritual entirely. We collapse into bed, leaving the sitting room as we found it, and the mess compounds night after night until the whole room needs what feels like an excavation. Then we wonder why keeping the house tidy feels so overwhelming, when the answer is simply 15 minutes every evening, without exception. Here is the thing nobody in the organization industry wants you to understand. Not one of the habits we've covered so far required buying a single thing. No storage solutions, no color-coded bins, no trips to a home goods shop for another set of matching boxes. Your grandmother understood that purchasing containers to hold clutter simply means you now have more clutter, housed in tidier packaging. A survey conducted by YouGov in 2022 found that British households spend an average of £340 annually on storage and organizational products. Your grandmother spent nothing. Her home was tidier, and the reason is uncomfortable in its simplicity. She prevented clutter from accumulating in the first place. The modern approach treats clutter as an inevitability. The traditional approach treated clutter as a failure of habit. We chose the expensive one. Number 9. One in, one out. Before anything new entered the house, something old left. This wasn't minimalism as a lifestyle philosophy. It was mathematics applied to a finite space. The rule applied to everything. Kitchen gadgets, Christmas decorations, books, linens. Cupboards couldn't overflow because the equation never allowed it. Drawers closed properly because they were never asked to hold more than their designed capacity. The habit taught restraint without ever using the word. We've abandoned this rule so completely that self-storage has become one of the fastest-growing industries in Britain. Number 8. The seasonal wardrobe turnover. Twice a year. Once in spring, once in autumn. Your grandmother performed a ritual that kept wardrobes functional and drawers closable. Summer clothes were washed, carefully folded and stored. Winter clothes came out, were inspected and assessed. The result, only one season's worth of clothing lived in the main wardrobe at any given time. Getting dressed in the morning was simple, because the choices were clear. Modern wardrobes hold all 4 seasons simultaneously. We buy duplicates of things we already own but can't find. The cycle feeds itself, and we blame our wardrobes for being too small. Number 7. The landing basket. The rule was simple. No one climbed or descended the stairs empty-handed. You checked the basket, you took something with you, you put it away when you arrived. Items migrated back to their proper floors without special trips, without effort, without anyone having to make a dedicated journey up and down simply to restore order. The baskets themselves were usually wicker, inexpensive, lightweight, lasting decades. Number 6. The clear surface principle. Horizontal surfaces attract clutter. This is not an opinion, it is an observable law of domestic physics. Clear surfaces create visual breathing room. They make a small terrace house feel calm and spacious. Number 5. The coat hook and shoe rack. By the back door. Never the front, always the back. Your grandmother maintained a row of hooks and a simple wooden rack by the back door, the door that faced the garden, the coal shed, the practical world. Every family member had an assigned hook. Coats, hats, and scarves hung in the same spot daily. Shoes lined up below in pairs. The choice of the back door was deliberate and telling. The back entrance was the working entrance, the one used every day, the one that connected the house to the muddy, coal-dusted practical reality outside. The front hallway was for visitors. It stayed presentable at all times, because it was never asked to absorb the daily traffic of family life. We've collapsed both functions into a single front entrance, asked it to perform the impossible, and then wondered why it always looks like a jumble sale. Number 4. The daily dusting. Not the whole house. One room per day in rotation, so that by the end of the week every room had been addressed, and the week began again. A soft cloth, perhaps with a drop of lavender water, wiped along surfaces and picture frames and windowsills. 5 minutes, perhaps 10. The air inside British homes was genuinely dangerous, and dust was part of that danger. Daily dusting wasn't a personality quirk. It was a health decision. Here is what separates your grandmother's approach. She did it while waiting for the bathroom to be free. Individual tasks took minutes. Spread thinly across 7 days, no single moment ever felt like cleaning. The modern approach concentrates everything into marathon sessions that feel like punishment. The mess builds further. It becomes a source of shame, something we hide from visitors. Your grandmother was never daunted because she was never behind. Number 3. The proper handover. This habit was called leaving a room fit for company, a phrase passed from mother to daughter across generations of British households. The principle behind it was both practical and social. At any moment, a neighbor might knock at the door. The vicar might call. A friend might stop by without warning. The house must always be ready to receive a visitor without apology. This wasn't anxiety. It was pride, a deep, uncomplicated pride in the home as a reflection of the family within it. Number 2. The Sunday reset. Sunday evening, while the week's roast settled and the washing up dried on the rack, your grandmother walked through the house ensuring everything was ready for Monday. School uniforms laid out, shoes polished, properly polished with a tin of polish and a brush, not a quick wipe on the doorstep. The family diary checked for the week ahead. Laundry sorted for wash day. A mental inventory of what was needed, what was low, what had to be done before Wednesday. This reset took perhaps 30 minutes. Those 30 minutes saved hours of scrambling across the days that followed, because Monday morning began with order rather than chaos, and order, once established at the start of the week, is far easier to maintain than it is to rebuild from scratch on a Thursday. Number 1. The standard that never slipped. One dirty cup left in the sink gave permission for a second. One cushion left unsquared led to a sofa in quiet disarray. Tidiness is not an achievement you reach and then keep. It is a continuous practice. The moment standards slip, they become harder to restore. One dirty cup left in the sink gave permission for a second. One cushion left unsquared led to a sofa in quiet disarray. Tidiness is not an achievement you reach and then keep. It is a continuous practice. The moment standards slip, they become harder to restore. Researchers at the Princeton Neuroscience Institute confirmed what she already knew from experience, that visual clutter genuinely competes for attention in the brain, reducing working memory and increasing the stress hormone cortisol. Not metaphorically, physiologically. A cluttered environment is a mildly stressed brain. A clear one is a calmer one. She couldn't have quoted the research, but she could feel the effect every morning when she came downstairs to a kitchen that had been properly closed the night before, and every evening when she made the final circuit before bed. Here is your challenge for this week. Pick 3. Just 3. The evening tidy. 15 minutes before bed. With a small basket every single night. The touch it once rule. Wherever you pick something up, take it where it belongs, immediately, and close your kitchen. After the last cup of tea, wipe the surfaces, hang the tea towel, and declare the room done for the night. Try those 3 for 7 days and notice what happens to how your home feels and how you feel inside it. These habits weren't invented by productivity coaches or lifestyle brands. They were lived, daily, by women who had no choice but to find systems that worked, In homes without central heating, without dishwashers, without the luxury of ignoring the coal dust that settled on every surface by afternoon. They found something that worked, and then they passed it down. We stopped receiving it. But nothing that was learned can stay forgotten forever. Not if someone decides to remember it. Leave us a comment below telling us which of these habits you grew up with, the one your mother or grandmother kept without ever explaining why. And if this felt like something worth sharing, pass it to someone who might need reminding that the wisest housekeeping advice doesn't come in a box from a catalog. It comes from memory, and memory, thankfully, is still free.